Hello and what's up to you all accounting buffins. It is your chance now, your time to learn more and learn extra with us right here on your favorite show where we learn more. My name is Abram and I'm joined by Mahesh and Tato. Mahesh, how are you?
I'm well, Abram. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a while. Hey,
it has been a while.
It's good to be back
Yeah.
do accounting with you.
It is.
Right, we also have Tato. How are you, Tato?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
So you're a genius. Hey, you're going to be doing all the calculations.
I'm going to try help along.
But you're
We'll
going to
see.
be learning also,
yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah,
Hey?
definitely.
Well, let's do this. Let's have fun, eh?
Yeah, perfect.
Right, but what are we doing, Mahesh?
Okay, guys, today we are looking at a revision question on company ledger accounts, especially because that June exam is fast approaching. So that's what we're going to be doing, Abram, company ledger accounts.
Nice one. So it is a bit of a revision. So my sisters, I hope you're going to enjoy that. Well, to learn more and learn extra with us, go to facebook.com/learn extra. Like our page because we just hit 79,000. So guys, keep on sharing, keep on liking, and tell all your friends, your classmates, your teachers to join us and let's help one another on our page. On Twitter, you can follow us at Learn Extra. Remember, on the page, we post your notes. Two options, the viewing option and the download option. And lastly, we also post the test yourself link, whereby if you answer the correct answers to the test yourself question, you stand a chance of winning this awesome Casio calculator. It is a nice calculator, hey?
Yeah, it'll help you pass.
It will help you pass because it has about 254 functions. Just imagine, Tato.
Yo, that'll be cool.
So there's a lot to do, so we'll give you one of these. I'll be announcing last week's winner later on the show. But Mash, over to you.
Okay, just one thing about that calculator. Just remember, guys, in that exam, your calculator is your best friend. Okay, right. In today's lesson, the focus is obviously on company ledger accounts, but which accounts are we going to be recapping on? We're going to start by looking at your ordinary share capital. And here, guys, remember, we're going to talk about issuing shares during the year as well as a buyback of shares. Buyback is obviously part of your new CAPS syllabus. Then we're also going to recap on retained income, followed by your income tax as well as SARS income tax T account. The next account we're going to revise on, guys, ordinary share dividends as well as the liability shareholders for dividends. And if we have time, only if we have time, guys, we're going to recap on that all-important appropriation account. But let's get started with today's challenge question, and then we'll start revising your ledger accounts. Now, the challenge question for today, guys, it's quite straightforward, quite simple, and I know you're not going to find this difficult. Let's go through it. The information below was taken from the records of CC Limited on the 28th of Feb 2014. Shareholders for dividends at the beginning of the year, an amount of 10,000, and beginning of the year because 1st March 2013. Then we've got an interim dividend for the year, 30,000. A final dividend for the year, an amount of 40,000. And then we have the next bit of information, shareholders for dividend at the end of the year, an amount of 20,000. And I've spotted an error which I want to quickly correct. It's actually not 20,000, guys. If you can please change that amount to 40,000. Okay, now what are you asked to do? You need to calculate the amount appearing in the retained income note for ordinary share dividends. Okay, for ordinary share dividends at 28th of Feb 2014. And here are your options given. So it's a multiple choice question. And then the second part to the question, what is the amount that will appear under trade and other payables? Okay, right, that's your challenge question for today. I think let's now look at our actual question that's going to help us revise on company ledger accounts.
All right. Can I ask you something, Mahesh? Since today it's like World Environment Day, can you use maybe a green color or another color?
Okay, I will. I will, Abram,
Thank
especially
you.
since you've asked.
Thank you.
Okay, right, so let's change to green. Can I use blue as well?
It's fine.
Is it
It's
fine? Okay. Because you know how I like to change the color of my
Yes,
pens all the
yes.
time. Okay, so let's look at using green for today. Right, the question that we're looking at, guys, you are provided with information relating to CD traders. Oh, the green looks fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. For the period 1st of March 2013 to the 28th of Feb 2014. Their financial year ends annually on the 28th of Feb. You are required to complete the following ledger accounts. So you've got your ordinary share capital, followed by retained income, SARS income tax T account, then your income tax account, the next two accounts that the question wants us to complete, shareholders for dividends, and then we've got our ordinary share dividends. Right, let's quickly go through the info that's been given to us. We're starting with balances as at 1st of March 2013. In other words, your opening balances at the beginning of the year. So my ordinary share capital has an opening balance of 300,000. And remember, guys, this is something that you should be familiar with. Ordinary share capital, owner's equity, has a credit opening balance. Then retained income, an opening balance of 60,000, again, owner's equity, so a credit opening balance. SARS income tax, in brackets, they've told me SARS has a credit balance of 10,000. In other words, Tato, I'm going to come to you. What type of, if SARS has a credit balance, is SARS an asset or a liability?
Liability.
It's a liability. Okay, you want to explain that further? What
We
does
still
it
owe
mean?
them money. So of the income tax calculated at the end of the year, we didn't pay all of it, so we owe the a deficit of
Okay.
10,000 rand.
Okay, excellent. So it's from the previous year where we are still owing the receiver 10,000, hence SARS is a liability. And then finally, shareholders for dividends, an opening balance of 30,000, another liability from the previous financial year. We are still owing our shareholders an amount of 30,000. Right, next bit of info. The net profit before tax on the 28th of Feb 2014. Okay, guys, that's just something that has just dropped. Okay, let's get back into the question.
It's Environment Day.
It is Environmental Day. Okay, amounts to 450,000. And then we've been given transactions for the year. Okay, so there's a bit of transactions concerning shares, which I'm going to read at a later stage. Then we've got transactions that's going to impact on taxation. And then finally, some transactions that's going to affect dividends. Okay, Abram, I think this is a suitable time for us to take a quick break.
Already?
Before I get into the actual question, because when I start with shares, I'm going to need as much as time as possible to do the ledger accounts.
No problem. Well,
Okay.
my sisters, Mahesh has asked for a break. I think you guys also deserve that break. In the meantime, you have the challenge question on our Facebook page. So do that, and then we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, awesome matriculants. Now it is the time that we've all been waiting for to announce our last week's winner for the Casio calculator. And drum roll there, Tato. Drum roll, please. Just a drum roll.
And the winner is
Please don't break our desk.
Tamira Naidu. Congratulations on your new calculator.
Awesome. You heard it. Tamira Naidu, this awesome Casio calculator is coming your way. If you'd like to be like her, even you, Tato, you're allowed to enter. All you need to do is to go to our link on the Test Yourself questions, answer those questions correctly, and you could stand a chance of winning this awesome calculator, your best buddy for exams. You need it, as Mahesh has said.
Yeah. Okay. Right, guys, before we took a break, we looked at the question that we're going to be completing in today's show. And let's now start completing the actual question. Ordinary share capital, as you can notice, I've already brought down my opening balance of 300,000. So I'm now ready to look at the transactions in terms of shares. Right, so let's go back to the information. I don't need the calculator now. Okay, so my info. At the beginning of the year, 100,000 shares were in issue. Okay, so something that we're already familiar with, we brought down our opening balance. Then, during August 2013, the directors decided to issue a further 50,000 shares at an issue price of 4 Rand each. All monies were received by the 31st of August 2013. Right, guys, so the directors decided to sell some shares during the financial year. The number of shares that they're selling, 50,000, and the issue price they're selling each share for is an amount of 4 Rand. So the total amount of capital that's coming into the company, Tato?
200,000.
200,000. All right, let's look at two accounts that will be affected by this 200,000. Remember, it's coming into the business's bank account, going into their bank account. So one account has to be bank. Hopefully you guys can see that end of the screen. And the second account, Tato, you want to help me?
Would be your ordinary share capital.
Would be my ordinary share capital. So let's now go to the ordinary share capital account, and we're going to credit ordinary share capital with the 200,000. So on the credit side, 200,000. Okay, my contra account that will be affected will be bank. Right, and please remember, guys, try and show calculation. I'm not going to show calculation, but in your answer sheet, we expect you to show a bit of calculation in terms of that 200,000. And this was received at the end of August, so the 31st of August. Simple, straightforward. Right, let's go back to my info, and let's look at the next transaction. On the 1st of December 2013, so still during the financial year, a further 50,000 shares were sold at 5 Rand each. So the company needed more capital, so they decided to issue or sell more shares to the public. So again, my calculation, number of shares issued, 50,000, times the issue price has changed to 5 Rand. So we're going to times this by 5 Rand, and the company is now receiving an amount of
250,000.
Okay, thanks, Tato. 250,000. Right, and again, guys, the two accounts that will be affected will be my bank account as well as my ordinary share capital account. So let's go to our answer sheet. Ordinary share capital is now increasing, therefore credit ordinary share capital by a further 250,000. Contra account will be bank. Okay.
And then what date would you put there? The 1st
date?
or the 31st? Because they don't specify when all the monies are paid
Okay, let's go back to the actual information, Tato. Right, the information on the 1st of December 2013, a further 50,000 shares were sold. So we'll assume that the monies were received on the 1st of December.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Right, so December 1st. Right, now guys, at this point, what I want to do is, I'm going to quickly change my color. Tato, I'm going to ask you to help me.
Okay.
At the beginning of the year, my balance for shares was 300,000. But if I had to ask you, at the beginning of the year, how many shares were issued?
Were in issue.
Were in issue.
100,000.
100,000.
shares,
So
yeah.
we're getting that info, guys. Okay?
At the top of the
At the
question.
top, at
Yeah.
the information at the top. So if we go back, 100,000, whatever
Where
I've
the
done,
balances
let's
are.
quickly find, there we go. Right, so 100,000, I'm just going to write that in. Let's use a different color. Abram, you have to forgive me because I'm using pink. Okay, so 100,000. Right, then I've got, let me just quickly fix that because I've written it in the wrong place. Okay.
Then
Right, so that's at the beginning of the year, number of shares in issue, 100,000. Then on the 31st of August, how many more shares were issued?
50,000.
50,000.
And then again. on the
Okay,
1st.
and then again on the 1st of December, we issued a further 50,000. Now remember, guys, this is absolutely important for you to distinguish between the number of shares issued, which I've written on the far end of my ledger account, against the total value of shares issued. Okay, right, let's now move on. Let's go back to our information. And let's look at what happened further in terms of shares.
Okay.
The directors decided that it was in the best interest of the company to buy back 25,000 shares at 4 Rand each. Okay, so buyback, remember guys, here we're looking at your share capital reducing. How many shares are they buying back? 25,000, and at a buyback price of 4 Rand each. The above was approved and the buyback and payment took place on the 31st of January 2014. Right, so this comes the section or the new section in the CAP syllabus, the buying back of shares, and this is where changes take place if you're looking at past papers compared to what you are expected to know in this year's examination. Right, now what I've done is I've prepared a table to help us with our calculation. Now, when we talk about buying back of shares, the first thing that we need to do is calculate what was that average price of shares that were in issue. In order for me to calculate my average price, I'm going to take the total value of shares issued thus far, and I'm going to divide this by my issue, or sorry, not issue price, let's just
Number of
quickly
shares
fix
in
that,
issue.
number of shares issued. Thanks, Tato. Number of shares
Issue.
issued. Okay, right, so let's do that. Let's do that calculation. My total value of shares, for that I need my ledger account, so I'm going to get my calculator out. Where is it? There we go, let's just bring this on this end. Okay, so I started the year with 300,000, so let's do that. Okay, right, Tata, I'm going to ask you to help me. Okay, so I started the year with 300,000.
And then you add the 200
I'm then
on.
adding my 200,000 plus 250,000. So in total, my total value of shares,
Was 750,000.
750,000. I'm going to divide this by the number of shares in issue. So I've got 100,000 at the beginning of the year. I then issued a further 50,000, and then again I
Another
issued
50,000.
another 50,000.
that's
So in total,
200,000 shares issued.
200,000. Okay, so I'm going to try the calculator one more time. Okay, so 700.
I think pick the select on the top.
Okay, it's fine, Tato.
Okay.
If you can help me, 750,000
Is 3 rand and
divided by
75 cents.
200,000, and what's that average issue price?
3 rand 75 cents per share.
Okay, 3 Rand 75 cents per share. Okay, right, guys. Now this bit of information is now going to help me in terms of my
Buyback.
calculation of the buying back of shares. Now remember, if we go back to the information, which I want to do, and then continue. Okay, the directors decided that it was in the best interest of the company to buy back the number of shares, 25,000, at 4 Rand each. Okay, right, so the buyback price was 4 Rand each, and remember, we're looking at the business or the company buying back 25,000 shares. Now, what are the two accounts, Tato, that will be affected by a buying back of share? Remember, this buyback was higher than the average
Okay,
price.
so you'll be looking at your bank being affected.
Okay, yeah, I know it's a bank that's affected. I'm looking at the two equity accounts that we
Oh.
discussed at the beginning of the year.
Okay, retained income.
Retained income
your
is one
ordinary share
account
capital.
affected, and the second,
Your ordinary share capital.
ordinary share capital. Okay, so we're going to start off with ordinary share capital. Remember, when there is a buyback, it means your ordinary share capital
gonna
is
decrease.
reducing. It's going to decrease. Okay, so let's look at by how much it's going to decrease. The number of shares that the directors have bought back, 25,000, times the average price that we calculated, 3.75. Okay, let's just do that properly. Okay, so my ordinary share capital is going to decrease by, let's just go through the calculation one more time, 25,000 times my average price, which I calculated from my T account, 3.75. Tato, are you helping me there?
Yes, I am. You have 93,750 rand.
93,750 rand. Okay. Right, so let's now go to our ordinary share capital account and let's reduce our ordinary share capital by the 93,750. Ordinary share capital will be debited, 93,750. Okay, the contra account that will be affected.
Would it be retained income?
Not retained
Bank.
income. It's going to be your bank account because remember you're paying your shareholders.
And then would you show the calculation again just in brackets
Yeah.
underneath?
Exactly.
maths,
So in
okay.
brackets, I don't have space here. I probably do, but in brackets, you are showing your 25,000 times that average price that we calculated, 3 rand. Was it 75?
Yeah, it was.
3.75. Okay. Right. Any questions, Sato?
No, I'm still with you.
Okay, Abram, any questions
We're
from
still-
us?
we're still
Are you
going
guys
together.
still with me? Okay, let's continue. Okay, so we've reduced our ordinary share capital. Let's now look at what's going to happen to retained income. Retained income will also be reduced by number of shares, which is 25,000 times. Remember, I'm reducing my equity in total by 4 rand. So I've already reduced it by 3.75 rand. I still need to reduce it by a further 25 cents.
Yeah.
Okay, so by 25 cents. And the total amount that my retained income is going to be reduced by will be
6,250 rand.
6,250. Okay, mindsetters, one more time, the calculation, it's 25,000 times 25 cents to give me 6,250. And again, the two accounts that will be affected by this, one is your retained income, and the second account will be your bank account. Okay, Tato, you with me?
Yes, I am.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So let's go to retained income. I already brought down the opening
60 down.
balance. So I'm now debiting retained income by 6,250. And like I said earlier, the contra account or the other account affected will be your bank account. Okay. Right, so that was as far as your ordinary share capital is concerned, the issue of shares, and then there was a buyback of shares. Let's move on with the question. Right, the next bit of information given to us, guys, is in terms of taxation. On the 1st of March 2013, a check was issued to the South African Revenue Service to pay the amount owing in respect of income tax. So this is obviously at the beginning of the financial year. So let's now look at the accounts that will be affected in terms of this particular adjustment. The first account, who am I paying?
SARS.
I'm
income
paying
tax.
SARS income tax. Good. So one account is SARS income tax, and the second account, I'm making a payment. So what gets affected?
Bank.
Your bank account gets affected. Right, so let's now go to our ledger account. On our answer sheet, there we go, SARS income tax. I already brought down that opening balance of 10,000, and SARS income tax now gets debited by this amount of 10,000. Contra account will be bank.
Would you balance this off, or would you leave it for the
You
later
can,
transactions?
you can, because at this point, you're obviously not owing the receiver anything.
Okay.
So you're going to start the new financial year, obviously, without owing the receiver.
Okay.
Okay, which is in a fantastic position to be.
It is.
That's not nice to be in trouble with the
Yeah,
receiver.
You don't.
No, you don't want to. Right, let's go back to the info. Okay, on the 31st of August 2013, provisional payments of 60,000 rand was made to the receiver of revenue. Now remember guys, the way SARS works, and I know you're aware of this because you've done this at the beginning of the year, but remember this is a recap, this is revision. Normally you are not aware of your tax assessment amount, but SARS expects you to make provisional payments during the year that will obviously reduce your income tax assessment amount at the end of the financial year. So that's exactly what is happening here. There's a payment of 60,000 Rand, provisional payment made to the receiver. Again, two accounts that will be affected. We are paying SARS income tax, so SARS is one account, and the second account, I'm making a payment, so my bank account gets affected. So let's do just that. The provisional payment is 60,000. So SARS income tax is going to, whatever my tax amount is, it's going to reduce by this provisional payment of 60,000. So I debit SARS, and my contra details will be bank. Tato, if you can remind me of the date of this transaction.
It was the 31st of August 2013.
Okay, 31st of August. Right, easy stuff, guys. Let's now move on. On the 1st of February, a second provisional payment of 85,000 Rand was made to SARS. So again, another provisional payment being made. And one more time, guys, the two accounts that are affected is your SARS income tax payment, so obviously that bank T account. It can't get easier than this. Second provisional payment amount, 85,000. Okay, so SARS income tax, debit by 85,000. Contra account will be bank. And this provisional payment was made on the 1st of February. Okay. Right, still with SARS transactions, so let's now find out what happens at year end. On the 28th of February, the income tax assessment for the year amounted to 30% of net profit. Right, so this is the time where you now find out exactly what is that taxation expense for this financial year. Right, our net profit, guys, was given to us at the beginning of the question, so let's go to that bit of info. There we go, it should be right at the beginning. Yeah, there we go. The net profit before tax on the 28th of Feb 2014 amounted to 450,000. Okay, so I need that bit of information to do my calculation of my tax expense for the year. So I'm taking my net profit, 450,000 times the tax rate, which is 30%. Should I try that calculator one more time?
Yeah.
Okay, 400, no, let's forget it. Okay, so 450,000 times 30%, and what's that tax that we should be paying the receiver?
I've got 135,000 Rand.
135,000. Thanks, Tato. Right, so the two accounts that will be affected with this 135,000 Rand, I know you guys know this. One account will be, I'm owing this to
The receiver, SARS.
the receiver, so one account has to be SARS income tax, and the second account will be my expense account,
Income tax.
income tax. Okay, so let's go to our answer sheet. Right, there we go. SARS income tax will be credited with the 135,000, and I'm going to debit my expense income tax with 135,000. Contra details will be SARS income tax, and then SARS income tax, my contra details will be income tax.
And then where would you show the calculation? In both your accounts or in the SARS income tax account?
Well, you can show it in either the SARS income tax or the income tax.
Okay.
Normally the debit. So whichever account you debit, that's where you show your calculation.
Okay.
Right, and this is taking place at the end of the financial year. Okay, right, now that was as far as tax was concerned. Abram, you're listening very attentively.
Yes, and also
not
watching what the
interrupting
mindset
at all.
and also just hearing what the mindsetters are saying. I'm really enjoying the conversations on the page. They are enjoying the show. So big ups, guys.
Fantastic.
Your answers are also helping them. The questions that you're also asking, they're helping them. So keep it up, guys. And I hear that it's cold in some parts of our country. So guys, get your hot chocolate or get your coffee next to you and don't go anywhere. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back, Matrix. Now, there's no more time for you guys to just play around and roam around and not do anything. We've got past exam papers that can help you. We're not saying that's your paper, because everyone has been asking for a scope on our page, Mahesh, saying what's going to come on the paper. We are not masters of scope mindsetters. We're helping you guys on what you don't understand, and all that we're doing, we're revising on what might come. So everything that we're doing, it's very important. So take it serious and know that we're not going to give you any scope. It's not going to be a giveaway.
Yeah.
We don't do
I
that.
have to agree with you on that one. I have my metrics every lesson. Ma'am, what do you think is going to be in that final exam? Is it going to be an income statement or a balance sheet? Guys, you have to learn both.
Exactly. So
There's no time.
there's no time. I'm glad you understand that, but past exam papers are also helpful, guys. So just look, not everything is going to come, of course, but look what you guys are doing in class and then compare and then study. It's all about practicing and ask questions if you don't understand.
Yeah. And guys, while we're on the subject of past papers, just remember that when you are revising companies, you're going to come across share premium. And if you do, remember that was part of the old syllabus. It's obviously not part of CAPS. Please add share premium to your ordinary share capital, and if that doesn't work, then you need to chat to your teacher. But you can still use the past papers. It just needs to be adapted a bit.
I like that, and I'm going to ask Chato later on to give us her own scope and just some study tips as a matriculant, what tips works for you later on.
Okay, right guys, let's carry on with this question. We're now looking at information in terms of dividends. On the 1st of March 2013, a check was issued to pay the amount owing to the shareholders. So if we go to our answer sheet, the balance that we were owing our shareholders was an amount of 30,000. Remember, shareholders for dividends is a liability. If we've paid our shareholders,
decreasing.
this liability is going to decrease. We're not going to owe them this amount anymore. So we're going to debit shareholders for dividends by an amount of 30,000. It is a payment, so your contra account, money is coming out of your bank account, so bank is your contra account, and this took place at the beginning of the financial year. And again, at this point in time, you're obviously not owing your shareholders anything in terms of what you were owing them last year. Right, let's move on to the next bit of information. On the 30th of September 2013, so this date is important because this is during the financial year, the company declared and paid an interim dividend of 30 cents per share. Now remember guys, your ordinary share dividend is made up of interim dividend, what was paid to shareholders during the year, as well as your final dividend, what was declared at the end of the financial year. So we're now busy looking at our interim dividend. Now this date, the 30th of September 2013, is really important because at this point in time, we need to look at the number of shares
That were an issue.
that were in issue. Okay, so we're going to now go to a calculation.
Would you not just use a timeline?
We can use a timeline, but let's go to the answer sheet where I've got a calculation,
Oh, okay.
so our mind setters can follow. So we're going to take number of shares that were in issue, and we're going to times this by each shareholder is getting 30 cents. Is that correct, Tato? Just
Yeah,
double check
it
that
is
for me.
30 cents.
It is 30 cents. All right, number of shares in issue. So again, back to our information. Okay, not that bit. There we go. That's our challenge question.
There you go.
Right, let's just go to our T account. where we broke down our shares. So my ordinary share capital, number of shares in issue at the beginning of the year was 100,000. Then on the 31st of August, we issued a further 50,000. Now, when was this interim dividend paid?
On the 30th of September. Sorry.
30th
Yeah.
of September. So December,
Doesn't
obviously those shareholders are not entitled to that interim dividend. So the number of shares in issue at that point in time, let's just quickly get the pen out, was 100,000 plus your 50,000, giving us 150,000. So let's go back to that page where we were busy with the actual calculation. There we go. Right, so my interim dividend calculation, number of shares 150,000 times 30 cents. Okay, 150 times 30 cents per share. So my interim dividend was 45,000. Right, again guys, in accounting there's always two accounts that are affected. Interim dividend has been paid. So one account will be bank, and the second account will be your expense account, ordinary share dividends. Okay, we're going to debit our expense account and we're obviously crediting our bank account. So let's go to my ordinary share dividends, which is my expense account. So on the debit side, my 45,000. Contra account will be bank. And this payment is taking place on the 30th of September. Okay, not difficult, guys, really not difficult. Take a few minutes or a few seconds to think about it before you do the actual entry in your answer book. Right, let's move on now to the next transaction. Okay. Okay, my next bit of information, for some reason I cannot find my info. Okay. No, Abram, do you have any questions? Well, yeah, it's probably a sign. Next bit of information, it's like it's gone. I don't know where my answer sheet is. Okay, that's my answer sheet. That is our challenge question. And then the information that I was using for some reason is not here anymore. So there's my challenge question. Okay. And then I've got a blank screen, and then I've got nothing.
How far were you from?
We were almost done.
I was actually on the very last adjustment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so is it fine if I ask Tato to read out the adjustment to the mindsetters, and I'll do the calculation?
Okay.
Okay.
If you do the
Tato?
calculation.
It says that a final dividend was declared on the 28th of February 2014 of 40 cents per share.
Okay, right. Final dividend was declared 40 cents
Per share.
per share, and remember your final dividend
on
is
the last
declared at the end of the financial year. Right, so again guys, in order to do this calculation, I need number of shares in issue at the end of the financial year times my 40 cents per share. So if I go back to the ordinary share capital that I used earlier on, number of shares in issue. Now guys, please pay attention to this calculation. At the beginning of the year, we had in issue 100,000. We then issued a further 50,000, followed by another 50,000. But how many shares did the company buy back?
25,000.
25,000. So what happened to my share capital with that 25,000?
It decreased.
It decreased. So remember, at this point, I had 200,000. Okay, I'm going to subtract the 25,000, the buyback, which was 25,000. So in issue, I have an amount of
175,000.
175,000 at the end of the financial year. So the number of shares in issue for this dividend calculation at the end of the year, 175,000 times 40 cents is going to give me a final dividend amount of, okay, it was 175,000 times 40 cents to give me an amount of 70,000. Okay, right, so that 70,000 will affect the following two accounts. And again, guys, this is a common mistake that students often
I just
make.
made it myself.
Two accounts that are affected. Yes, Tato, I remember you made this mistake earlier during the year when we wrote a test.
Okay.
Two accounts that will be affected. The first account will be your expense account called,
Ordinary share dividend.
okay, ordinary share dividends. And the fact that this has not been paid,
out
can
yet.
bank be affected?
No.
No, it can't. So you now have incurred a liability. And what's that liability called?
Shareholders for dividend.
Shareholders for dividends. So those are your two accounts that are affected.
Yeah.
You're going to debit the expense account, ordinary share dividends, with this amount of 70,000. And who am I owing the 70,000 to?
Shareholders. then.
Shareholders for dividend. I'm
Liability
now
increasing.
owing my shareholders an amount of 70,000. Contra account would be my ordinary share dividend account. Guys, please remember in the exams you must not abbreviate. And ordinary share dividends, contra account will be shareholders for dividends. Okay, Abram, that was the question. And all that's left, and I'm sure the mindsetters can do this, is to balance all the accounts and close off to appropriation.
Perfect.
Okay, should we go to the challenge question?
Yes.
Okay, right, I have the challenge question, thank God. Okay, let's find that. There we go. Right, guys, let's read through this one more time. The information below was taken from the records of CC Limited on the 28th of Feb 2014. Shareholders for dividends at the beginning of the year, 10,000. Interim dividends for the year, an amount of 30,000. Final dividend for the year, an amount of 40,000. And then you told shareholders for dividends at the end of the year, and I remember changing this to 40,000. Okay, and obviously it's a credit balance. Right, let's look at the first question. The amount appearing in the retained income note for ordinary share dividends. Tato, give me a formula. Ordinary share dividend is made up of
Interim plus final.
interim plus final. Okay, is there an opening balance and a closing balance in this calculation? No, there isn't. So from the information above, my interim dividend is 30,000. My final dividend is 40,000. So what's the amount that's going to appear in the retained income note?
70,000.
70,000. So the correct option is
B.
B. Okay, so 70,000. Easy, guys. Right, the next part to the challenge question. The amount appearing under trade and other payables, in other words, at the end of the financial year, will be the amount that you are still owing your shareholders at the end of the financial year. Okay, so your shareholders for dividend at the end of the year, an amount of 40,000. So that's how much I am owing my shareholders, and it will be under trade and other payables, so definitely not the 10,000, definitely not the 70,000. Okay, not the 20,000, although there was an error, guys, I'm sorry for that. Okay, you not owing them zero, so it has to be
None of the above.
none of the above.
Mhm.
Okay. Right,
Great
Abram?
one. I have some questions from the mindsetters.
Okay.
But before I take those questions, Tato,
Yes.
study methods. What works for you? What doesn't work for you?
Oh, wow. Listen in class. Do your homework, because that saves you like a lot of time when it comes to studying. Because when you go over it again, then you've done it and you can remember your errors. And just practice, because accounting you can't really like learn anything. So just like a lot of practicing, like past papers, watch mindset.
Yes.
Yeah, stuff like that. Just kind of keep you fresh. It's like running. It's like being fit. If you don't run, then you're going to be unfit when you try to run a race. You're not going to be able to. But if you're constantly practicing your accounting, and when time comes to run the race, you'll win.
So true. Well said. You know what? You deserve an A, hey? So we'll be watching.
Yeah,
for
man,
you
did
to
you hear that?
You had that?
So,
Right.
that's absolutely true, because with accounting, the more you practice, the better your marks. And I know some of you are thinking, but hang on, I'm doing 7, 8 subjects. Where is there time to
isn't
practice?
time.
Guys, all you've got to do is twice a week, set aside 35 minutes or 40 minutes, maximum 40 minutes, where you're doing additional accounting. But you need to be consistent. That is the key. So if, for example, I'm choosing a Tuesday and a Thursday to practice, I need to make sure I'm practicing on those days.
Yes,
Not that
yes.
1 week,
Yeah.
nah, I don't feel like doing this,
Yes,
and
yes.
you're obviously not being consistent.
But that
And-
40 minutes isn't even enough sometimes because the questions are so long. So
Yeah,
you
but-
find that
But
you'll run
remember,
out.
on average, your questions are between 35 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
And accounting is all about managing time.
Mm.
Okay.
So if you can't manage time, you can't manage your finances. It's all about that. And I think most importantly, if you have a study timetable that you have set, stick to it.
Yeah.
There are times it's
Got to.
difficult, you know, you find other things that are coming. Maybe Tatu had planned that today you're going to study and Mem said
Yeah.
you should come here. You know, some things will come. But anyway, you need to be prepared for such things and know that you're always in advance in your studying and you practice, because the more you run, it's the better you're going to become. Well, let's take some questions.
Yeah, I think
Right.
we have some time for questions.
There's a question from a tweet from Malia was saying, if they gave me on information to amount, if they gave me information without an amount, how would I know how much will I be entering in a certain account, like information on tax?
Okay. I think he's talking about the balance at the beginning of the year, where I had the transaction, and I can't go to the actual question, but you had a transaction on the 1st of March. The amount that was owing to SARS was paid to them. So where am I getting that amount from? So if you go to your table in your list of opening balances, you were owing the receiver. Tato, help me. We were owing the receiver
10,000
10,000.
rand, yeah.
So you obviously then paid the receiver that amount of 10,000. The same would apply to shareholders for dividends.
All right.
Okay.
It
Would you
makes
just
sense.
fall back, if there's any missing amounts, would you just always fall back on your T account formats and kind of fill in
Yeah,
what you would
yeah.
know would
I
be there?
think he could also be talking about appropriation, where that account comes in handy when, let's say, your income tax is missing. So you draw up your T account for appropriation. Let's just quickly show you guys what I'm talking about. So you've got appropriation. On the credit side, I know I transfer my profit and loss amount, and let's say I've got that amount. On the credit side, my retained income at the beginning of the year, and I have that amount. On the debit side, how do I appropriate these profits? So I've got to pay income tax, and let's assume that amount is missing. So at school, I normally say, let that missing amount be X. Ordinary share dividends, let's assume that is given to you. Retained income is also given to you. So in the event of solving for X, calculating this X, I'm adding everything on the known side, which is the credit side. So I'm adding everything on the credit side, and I'm then subtracting whatever I've got on the debit side, and then I'm able to solve for X, for that unknown.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's go to another question where it says, if there's two amounts in the retained income, the one is for buying share and the other is for the previous year, how am I going to treat them?
Okay, right. Now, I need to obviously look at the actual question, but from what you've read out, where you have a scenario where you've got your retained income at the beginning of the year, and then there's a transaction for a buyback and the amount is given to you, your retained income needs to reduce by that amount given to you in terms of the buyback of share.
And then when you take that final total of the reduced retained income to your appropriation?
Yeah,
When
you
you're
would,
calculating
you would.
it.
Okay, but like I said, it depends on the information, guys. Depends a lot on the information. And remember, that is what your teacher is there for. Okay, so when you have this transaction that you don't understand, then you can obviously post it on our page. I can help you, or your teacher can help you as well.
All right, last one from Tepang. Evening, where does the 150,000 shares for interim dividend come from?
The 150,000, okay, let's go to that quickly. It's on our answer book. The 150,000, if I go back to,
Yeah,
it
with
was
the
ordinary
buying
share
and the
capital.
timeline, yeah.
Okay, interim dividend was declared on, I think it was the 30th of September. So at that point in time, 30th of September, how many shares were in issue? So I've got March and I've got August and then I've got December. So obviously August is that cutoff point. So for this time, I had 100,000 plus an additional 50,000,
December hasn't
and that's
occurred
where,
yet.
December hasn't occurred as yet. So at that point in time, in issue, there were 150,000 shares.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Well,
Right.
that's where we have to end it today. Thank you so much, Mahesh.
Pleasure.
And thanks to you also, Tato, for
Thank
being
you.
here. A shout out to your friends.
Hi guys, study for Monday. Woo.
Yeah,
What
they're writing,
friends?
they're writing accounting on Monday, so
Oh,
Go Joe, Reese, all my buddies in accounting. Who sits with me? I don't even know.
you're going to be in trouble after this. What about your mom?
Oh, hi mom.
She's like, oh, well, mom, you too. Well, thank you for being here, and all the best with your test
you
and
so
all your
much,
exams. Mesh, thank you very much. It's been a great show.
it has. It's
I
been
really enjoyed
fantastic.
myself.
Yeah, we had lots of things happening, but that happens.
Yeah, that happened. Let's leave the past to the past. Well, Monsitors, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Remember, if you're struggling anyway, we've got a help desk that is dedicated to help you at any time. And if you didn't download our notes, remember you can always go to land.mindset.co.za. But from us today, we just want to say we love you and we're leaving you in peace.
CD traders. Oh, the green looks fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. For the period 1st of March 2013 to the 28th of Feb 2014. Their financial year ends annually on the 28th of Feb. You are required to complete the following ledger accounts. So you've got your ordinary share capital, followed by retained income, SARS income tax T account, then your income tax account, the next two accounts that the question wants us to complete, shareholders for dividends, and then we've got our ordinary share dividends. Right, let's quickly go through the info that's been given to us. We're starting with balances as at 1st of March 2013. In other words, your opening balances at the beginning of the year. So my ordinary share capital has an opening balance of 300,000. And remember, guys, this is something that you should be familiar with. Ordinary share capital, owner's equity, has a credit opening balance. Then retained income, an opening balance of 60,000, again, owner's equity, so a credit opening balance. SARS income tax, in brackets, they've told me SARS has a credit balance of 10,000. In other words, Tato, I'm going to come to you. What type of, if SARS has a credit balance, is SARS an asset or a liability?
Liability.
It's a liability. Okay, you want to explain that further? What
We
does
still
it
owe
mean?
them money. So of the income tax calculated at the end of the year, we did.
So we'll give you one of these. I'll be announcing last week's winner later on the show. But Mesh, over to you.
Okay, just one thing about that calculator. Just remember, guys, in that exam, your calculator is your best friend. Okay, right. In today's lesson, the focus is obviously on company ledger accounts, but which accounts are we going to be recapping on? We're going to start by looking at your ordinary share capital. And here, guys, remember, we're going to talk about issuing shares during the year as well as a buyback of shares. Buyback is obviously part of your new CAPS syllabus. Then we're also going to recap on retained income, followed by your income tax as well as SARS income tax T account. The next account we're going to revise on, guys, ordinary share dividends as well as the liability, shareholders for dividends. And if we have time, only if we have time, guys, we're going to recap on that all-important appropriation account. But let's get started with today's challenge question, and then we'll start revising your ledger accounts. Now, the challenge question for today, guys, it's quite straightforward, quite simple, and I know you're not going to find this difficult. Let's go through it. The information below was taken from the records of CC Limited on the 28th of Feb 2014. Shareholders for dividends at the beginning of the year, an amount of 10,000, and beginning of the year because 1st March 2013. Then we've got an interim dividend for the year, 30,000.
Hello and what's up to you all accounting buffins? It is your chance now, your time to learn more and learn extra with us right here on your favorite show where we learn more. My name is Abram and I'm joined by Mahesh and Tato. Mahesh, how are you?
I'm well, Abram. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a while. Hey,
It has been a while.
it's good to be back to accounting with you.
It is.
Right, we also have Tato. How are you, Tato?
I'm good, thanks, and you?
So you're a genius. Hey, you're going to be doing all the calculations.
I'm gonna try help along.
But you're
we'll
going to
see.
be learning also,
yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah,
hey?
definitely.
Well, let's do this. Let's have fun, eh?
Okay, perfect.
Right, but what are we doing, Mahesh?
Okay, guys, today we are looking at a revision question on company ledger accounts, especially because that June exam is fast approaching. So that's what we're going to be doing, Abram, company ledger accounts.
Nice one. So it is a bit of a revision. So my sisters, I hope you're going to enjoy that. Well, to learn more and learn extra with us, go to facebook.com/learn extra. Like our page because we just hit 79,000. So guys, keep on sharing, keep on liking, and tell all your friends, your classmates, your teachers to join us and let's help one another on our page. On Twitter, you can follow us at Learn Extra. Remember, on the page, we post your notes. Two options, the viewing option and the download option. And lastly, we also post the test yourself link, whereby if you answer the correct answers to the test yourself question, you stand a chance of winning this awesome Casio calculator. It is a nice calculator, hey?
Yeah, it'll help you pass.
It will help you pass because it has about 254 functions. Just imagine, Tato.
Yo, that'll be cool.
So there's a lot to do.
A final dividend for the year, an amount of 40,000. And then we have the next bit of information, shareholders for dividend at the end of the year, an amount of 20,000. And I've spotted an error which I want to quickly correct. It's actually not 20,000, guys. If you can please change that amount to 40,000. Okay, now what are you asked to do? You need to calculate the amount appearing in the retained income note for ordinary share dividends, okay, for ordinary share dividends at 28th of Feb 2014, and here are your options given, so it's a multiple choice question. And then the second part to the question, what is the amount that will appear under trade and other payables? Okay. Right, that's your challenge question for today. I think let's now look at our actual question that's going to help us revise on company ledger accounts.
All right. Can I ask you something, Mahesh? Since today it's like World Environment Day, can you use maybe a green color or another color?
Okay, I will, Abram,
Thank
especially
you.
since you've asked.
Thank you.
Okay, right, so let's change to green. Can I use blue as well?
It's fine.
Is it
It's
fine? Okay, because you know how I like to change the color of my
Yes,
pens all the
yes.
time. Okay, so let's look at using green for today. Right, the question that we're looking at, guys, you are provided with information relating to.
Didn't pay all of it, so we owe the a deficit of
Okay.
10,000 rand.
Okay, excellent. So it's from the previous year where we are still owing the receiver 10,000, hence SARS is a liability. And then finally, shareholders for dividends, an opening balance of 30,000, another liability from the previous financial year, we are still owing our shareholders an amount of 30,000. Right, next bit of info. The net profit before tax on the 28th of Feb 2014. Okay, guys, that's just something that has just dropped. Okay, let's get back into the question.
It's Environment Day.
It is Environmental Day. Okay, amounts to 450,000. And then we've been given transactions for the year. Okay, so there's a bit of transactions concerning shares, which I'm going to read at a later stage. Then we've got transactions that's going to impact on taxation. And then finally, some transactions that's going to affect dividends. Okay. Abram, I think this is a suitable time for us to take a quick break.
Already?
Before I get into the actual question, because when I start with shares, I'm going to need as much time as possible to do the ledger accounts.
No problem. Well,
Okay.
my sisters, Mahesh has asked for a break. I think you guys also deserve that break. In the meantime, you have the challenge question on our Facebook page. So do that, and then we'll see you after the break.